Big Ten Power Rankings right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here. Please like the video, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe. We break down the Big Ten and college football every day right here at the Voice of College Football. Keep in mind that we've got team channels representing Ohio State, Michigan, also Nebraska, and Iowa. So lock it in. Let's get to the Big Ten Power Rankings starting at number 14, and a team that has played 6 games and has yet to play a decent game. Illinois. 2 wins. They beat FAU by 6 points. Lowly FAU at home by 6, down 10-0 at one point in that game. And they needed a 4th down miracle on the last drive and a last-second field goal to beat Toledo. Illinois is coming off multiple losses here in the Big Ten. Lost to Penn State 30-13. Actually played fairly well in that game considering a 5-0 turnover disadvantage. Then they lost to Purdue in a game that they were up late second quarter and gave up 24 consecutive points, lost 44-19. And then the last outing against an awful, atrocious Nebraska team, they lost that game and looked really bad, losing 20-7. Luke Altmaier had to throw it 47 times, and Illinois averaged less than 2 yards per rush in that game. Yes, Illinois is the worst team in the Big Ten. They are 2-4, 0-3 in the conference, and they've got a date at Maryland as a 2-touchdown underdog. Nebraska notched its first win in the Big Ten under Matt Rule. Hooray, hooray, they defeated Illinois 20-7, as we just mentioned. And now Jeff Sims is back in play at quarterback. There's a quarterback competition with Sims back healthy and declared 100% healthy and ready to play. Heinrich Harburg, 18 rushes, 82 yards. So he's been carrying the football during this stay as starting quarterback in Nebraska, like 18, 19, 20 times per game. He's been more of a rushing threat, 12 of 24 passing against Illinois, and that's what Nebraska's football is going to be the rest of the year. Throw it only when you have to, especially in losing one of their leading wide receiver and downfield threats in Marcus Washington against Illinois, and run it, Anthony Grant with 20 carries against the Illini. Nebraska now at 3-3, finally win a game in the Big Ten. They've got a bye week, and they've got Northwestern upcoming. Possibly the biggest decline in the Big Ten is at Minnesota. PJ Fleck's 7th team is probably his worst. They dropped to 3-3 overall with a loss to Michigan as the buzzsaw that is the Wolverines trampled through the Gophers 52-10. Minnesota's only touchdown, a 35-yarder from Ethan Kalkumanis to Daniel Jackson, a 35-yarder. Consider this. Kalkumanis only threw for 52 yards in the game. In a game that they were losing by 6 touchdowns, he could only throw for 52 yards, even in garbage time. That's how dominant Michigan was in this game. Although the Golden Gophers mounted a bit of a rushing attack, 126 yards on 34 running back carries. They've got the running backs, but that's really the only position group that's played well on this Minnesota team. Tyler Nubin, one of the best safeties in America, has not been enough on defense. So what has traditionally been in recent years a strong Minnesota rushing attack and defense, well, the defense has let them down and the quarterback play has not been there. Minnesota now 3-3. They've got a bye week before they lick their wounds and try to correct things going to Iowa. Of course, it was Northwestern that gave us indication that this Minnesota team was not up to its standard. The Wildcats came back from 21 down to defeat the Gophers. Think of the least likely team in America to come back from 3 touchdowns down in the fourth quarter, especially at that juncture, with most of us forecasting Northwestern would win how many games this year? 0, 1, 2 at the most? Well, they've got 3 under their belt after holding off Wagner 23-20. Backup quarterback Brendan Sullivan led the Wildcats to victory with 3 touchdowns, but not impressive against Wagner at 23-20. They had to hang on for the victory. Northwestern's got a bye week before they go to Nebraska. They're 3-3, and could Northwestern make a bowl game? Indiana still looking for its first Big Ten win, going to an unlikely place to get it, Ann Arbor. Hoosiers at 0-2, 2-3 overall, are number 10 team in the Big Ten, and Indiana football has had some decent efforts out there. Of course, the opener against Ohio State, they played well defensively, held the Buckeyes to 23 points. Look at what Louisville's doing right now. 6-0, just beat Notre Dame. Well, Indiana had the ball at the goal line to tie them up late in the fourth quarter of that game, 21-14 loss. But then there's the Akron survival, missed field goal, gifted Indiana the win, 29-27. Their latest game, Maryland, and a 44-17 loss. They only scored 3 points in the first half, which led to the ouster of offensive coordinator Walt Bell. The number 10 team in the Big Ten, Indiana. Now that the Mel Tucker debacle is behind the team, the players, the coaches, not the university, they have to deal with the legalities. Maybe the Spartans can make something of this season. The last time out on the road at Iowa, not a bad effort. They led by 3 points in the fourth quarter before giving up a punt return for a touchdown that sealed the win for Iowa. Harlan Barnett, the interim coach, is not sold on the quarterback situation. He's got Noah Kim, who started the first 6 games. 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, but he's considering Nate Hauser, a top 10 quarterback in the 22 class and a top 250 prospect. And Barnett is saying, just wait till game time. We'll see who starts at quarterback for Michigan State. Spartans going on the road at Rutgers as our number 9 team in the Big Ten. Purdue had a shot to pull off a win at Iowa City, but could not overcome issues in the passing game with 12 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and 2 interceptions from Hudson Card. They lose to the Hawkeyes 20-14. They've got a dynamite 1-2 punch in the backfield with Devin Mockabee and Tyrone Tracy. And they came off a 24 consecutive points to defeat Illinois the week before to notch their first Big Ten win. The team with the best non-conference schedule of Fresno State, Syracuse, and Virginia Tech stands at 2-4 overall. And they welcome Ohio State to town. It's Purdue at number 8 in the Big Ten. Despite playing 4 Power 5 teams, including Michigan, Rutgers has the 13th ranked total defense in America, and they stand at 4-2. Scarlet Knights are number 7 team in the Big Ten, and they put up a decent fight at Wisconsin. They were in the game until a pick 6 right before halftime doomed them to a 17-0 hole, and they lost that one 24-13. As you know, Rutgers is a 5.5-point favorite at home this Saturday against Michigan State. Number 7 in the Big Ten, looking for a bowl invitation. Rutgers. Yes, the Hawkeyes survived another anemic offensive showing against Purdue, winning that game 20-14. Deacon Hill, first-time starter at quarterback, replacing Cade McNamara, and that will be his spot for the rest of the season as McNamara is out for 2023. 6 of 21 passing. He completed 1 pass to a running back, 5 passes to Eric All, and that was it. That was the passing offense for Iowa. This week, most likely for the Western Division title, because these are the 2 best teams, and it looks like the team that wins this, especially if it's Wisconsin, will have the clear path to the Western Division championship. But the Hawkeyes go to Camp Randall. That has been a house of horrors in recent years for their offense, and pretty much anywhere they play these days, a house of horrors. Number 132 in total offense. Did have a nice effort from Caleb Johnson coming back from an ankle injury to carry it 17 times for a $134 against Purdue. At number 6 in the Big Ten is Iowa, going to Wisconsin as a 10-point dog to take control of the Western Division. And speaking of those Badgers, they're coming off a 24-13 win against Rutgers. Ricardo Hallman had a pick 6, 95-yard touchdown return. He's intercepted 4 passes in the last 3 games to lead the Badgers and lead the nation. And, of course, Braylon Allen, with the Ches Malusi injury, is the guy for Wisconsin in the rushing attack. 101 yards last week. Jackson Aker, though, backing him up, had 65 and looks like a promising young back. Tanner Mordecai will need to step up his game for Wisconsin to compete for a Big Ten championship. But for the West, this team can probably just do what it's doing and win the division. They've got the game of the year at home, taking on Iowa. It's Wisconsin and Iowa. The Badgers come in at 4-1 and are number 5 team in the Big Ten. Probably the biggest question in the Big Ten in the offseason, past the Big 3, was about Maryland. And could Maryland compete with the 3 monsters in the East? Well, they got their first chance in Columbus, and they wilted in the second half. They led 10-0 early. It was a 10-10 game at halftime, but when it came down to it, just could not move the ball consistently and score against the Buckeyes. They had 1 scoring drive of real significance to start the second half. Other than that, they were given a short field on a botched punt. Talia Tungavailoa threw for less than 200 yards, 2 picks. Roman Hemby in that rushing attack had 3 yards per carry against the Buckeyes as Maryland was shut down in the second half. Lose that game to Ohio State 37-17. So consider that Maryland is 5-1. They've looked impressive, but this was a step up in class clearly. And if you look at their outings against Michigan and Ohio State last year when they stayed within a score, this was actually a step back because they were dominated in the second half. But still, our number 4 team in the Big Ten, but clearly A drop-off from the top three, the Terps of Maryland. Let me be clear, when it comes to the top three teams in the Big Ten, they can be ordered in any way, and it can be justified. It can be argued, debated, and confirmed. I could make the case for Ohio State. I can make the case for Penn State. I can make the case for Michigan. But based on the eyeball test combined with the results on the field, as we like to do here at the Voice of College Football, Ohio State's number 3 right now. So the Buckeyes struggled offensively in the first half against Maryland, finally got it together in the passing game, not the rushing game at all. And this is clearly why I've got Ohio State at number 3 right now. They cannot run the football. They cannot move people out of the way in the running game. Chip Tranum had 20 carries for 61 yards. If there was any running room for Ohio State backs, it was on the very last drive of the game. Mayan Williams had some nice runs for Ohio State as they closed out a 20-point win. So it wasn't like the game was on the line and 4 minutes left and the defense was challenging and at fever pitch and they ran the ball down their throats to seal the game. They had the game won. That's when they finally got some running plays downfield. But it was ugly. Otherwise, the Buckeyes, pretty airtight. Kyle McCord's getting better and better and better every week. Marvin Harrison got loose in this game. 8 catches for $163. Nobody real concerned about the wide receiver course. And then on defense, Ohio State's number 4 in the nation in yards per play. And keep in mind, the last 2 games have come against very capable offenses, Maryland and Notre Dame, and they've held them to 14 and 17 points. But right now, number 3 in the Big Ten with a trip to West Lafayette as a 20-point favorite, the Buckeyes. The team that I believe has the most talented defense in the conference and possibly all of college football is Penn State. They have NFL first-rounders on every level of the defense. They can be dominant. They're athletic. They're long. They're lean. They're fast. They're explosive. They're everything on defense. Maybe if you're going to nitpick, slightly lean on the defensive front. We'll see if they get bullied again this year by the Michigan Wolverines. But at number 2 in the Big Ten is Penn State. Drew Allers had a decent statistical season, but if you look at how he has played against the better teams on the schedule, it has not been pretty, especially on the road. His QBR is low. And also in the running game, considering Nick Singleton and Katron Allen coming off monster freshman seasons, you would expect, hey, they're getting bigger, better, and stronger as sophomores, and this was supposed to be the best Penn State offensive line we've seen since the Joe Pa era. And they have just not had that explosive run in the running game and not been consistent moving the ball on the ground either. They're taking on UMass and can take some time to work on some issues as a 42.5-point favorite. Our number 2 team in the Big Ten is Penn State. The most complete team in the Big Ten, maybe the most complete team in college football, Michigan. I said this recently during a video that I believe that while every team in college football, and you can certainly leave a comment down below, let me know if I'm wrong, that there is not a team in college football that has not played a better team than the best team on Michigan's schedule, which is kind of a tie between Minnesota Rutgers and Nebraska. But at the same time, every other team in college football has struggled against somebody. Michigan has not. They ran it down Minnesota's throats, 191 yards rushing, 5.8 yards per carry. They defeated the Gophers 52-10. That is the latest route. The Nebraska game was a complete annihilation. Nebraska had one drive that was meaningful. They went for 60-some yards. Michigan stopped them on a 4th and 1. Game over. First quarter, done. 28-0 and on to 42-7. Yeah, they've been dominant against everyone. Very few chinks in the armor. Donovan Edwards, though, bit of a mystery, not having a good season. 3.4 yards per carry. Maybe Khalil Mullings is going to take his place as the primary backup to Blake Corum and the guy that gets the 10 or 12 carries per game. J.J. McCarthy, of course, has been stellar, aside from 3 picks against Bowling Green that did not matter. And the Michigan defense is one of the best in the nation. It could be argued the best. I want to see them play somebody with a pulse. Purdue is going to be the first offense that is decent. And then, of course, Penn State. But the number 1 team in the Big Ten is Michigan right now. And if you're going to group the teams in the Big Ten, again, combination of eyeball test, the optics, but also the metrics, and then also the results on the field, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, 1, 2, and 3, and a class by themselves. Then a huge drop-off. Maryland at 4. I'll put Maryland for right now. Maryland, Wisconsin, and Iowa, 4, 5, and 6 together. And then there's a grouping right now that's not too distinguishable, but I am going to separate Rutgers, Purdue, and Michigan State at 7, 8, and 9. And then the bottom is just the dregs in the abyss: Indiana, Northwestern, Minnesota, Nebraska, and Illinois. It's 1 through 14 in the Big Ten. Your thoughts down below as we continue with power rankings right here at the Voice of College Football.